The plan is to replace this one little tube. It goes along from there to there. With all these parts I have laid out on my toolbox, so that I'll have a third function to operate my grapple. Before I start, I will blow out all my hoses and make sure all my fittings are clean. My work environment is as clean as I can get it to keep any trash or dirt out of my hydraulic system. At the heart of the system will be a Chief 229-313 D.I.Y 3-way solenoid valve coupled with a Summit D03S12-08S manifold. It's a side port manifold, so the ports come out the top and the bottom. Designing a third function kit from scratch takes a lot of research and planning and a little bit of fabrication, but at the end of the day it's a rewarding experience that saves some money. I will have less than half the price of a pre-designed kit invested in this. I'm getting ready to add all the port connections. The ports on the manifold are all size 8 SAE ORB connections, and so I'm going to adapt the in and out to 3/8 JIC for the hoses, and the top ports I'm going to put these 3/8 flat face quick disconnects on. So I have adapters that go -8 to 3/8 pipe, and I'll seal those up and put them on. This manifold came without the ports plugged, so I had to tape it up to keep debris out, and so I got to untape it and set all that up and keep it clean. These solenoid coils can be clocked 90 degrees either way, however it fits best on the tractor once I get it mounted. One more note, the manifold block had a dowel to make sure it only goes on the valve one way, and it's clearly marked P and T for pressure and tank on one side, and A and B for the different direction ports on the other. So it's infallible pretty much, as long as you pay attention to the labeling and put the right connectors in the right holes. I'm putting these O-ring Boss adapters in. I like to put a little petroleum jelly on the O-rings to lubricate them, and put them in the ports. This thing will slip out of the vise if you try to lean on it very hard, so I back it up with a adjustable wrench. The adapters are 7/8 inch, so snug it down, and then when I get ready to tighten it, I will put the adjustable on there to keep from pulling it out of the vise, and get it good and tight. Going out of the valve stays on the tractor, so if you ever want to remove the loader, you need quick disconnects on top of the valve going out. Fertilizer in my snout when I was young, and I've been shaky all my life, but managed to get by and learn to live with it. So I'll put the Permatex on there to seal it up. The quick disconnects 15/16, the adapters 7/8. So we'll tighten that all up good, and then I will follow the same rule I used on the other ports and put some petroleum petroleum jelly on the O-ring and put these quick disconnects in the top of the valve. So after I get my fittings good and tight, I'll take some brake cleaner and clean this excess Permatex out of this area here. Otherwise the dirt's going to just stick to it and make a big mess. So I'll get that cleaned out good before I put them in the valve. The only metal fabrication was making a bracket to attach the hydraulic valve and manifold, and the two quick connect fittings I will mount at the front of the loader. I made the mount for the valve and manifold out of a piece of flat 11 gauge metal measuring 2 3/4 inch by 4 3/4 inch. The 2 1/4 inch mount holes are 3 inches from the bottom and centered at 1 3/4 inches. I welded that to a 4 inch long piece of 2 by 3 angle. That has 2 1/2 inch holes drilled in the bottom on a 4 inch center for the U-bolt. I will bolt it to the left side loader mount tube using a U-bolt I purchased from Tractor Supply that has 3 1/2 inch inside and 1/2 inch stock. I had to put nuts on the U-bolt and put it in the vise and spread it a little bit to keep it from scratching the tube on the tractor. The bracket for the quick disconnects on the loader is just a 4 inch long piece of 2 by 3 angle. I drilled 2 9/16 inch holes for the bulkhead fittings that are 3/8 JIC male on one end and 3/8 male national pipe thread on the other. The holes are at 3/4 inch and 2 1/4 inch from the front end. I drilled a couple of 1/4 inch holes at 3/4 inch from the other end to attach to the tube shield on the loader. I will mark that and install rivet nuts to bolt the quick disconnect bracket onto the loader. So I got my valve ready to go on the tractor. I picked up this wiring off of Amazon. It's got 5 10 copper conductors inside a sheath that's about 1/4 inch, a little over. The 1/4 inch, you only use 2 wires on each one of these, and you'll use 4 at the loader handle, but the sheath on there fits perfectly in the seals on the DIN connectors, so that'll make a nice seal. I'll probably wipe a little silicone in there after it's all said and done, just for added security to keep the dirt out. But I'll have to, of course, figure out where these are going to pass in and out of the cab and find an entrance exit point and measure lengths and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be part of the project after the valve's mounted. Alright, so I got my valve mounted. It's kind of snug in there, but I like that it's inside the loader frame instead of outside like some of the other setups I've seen. And it's on this side, it's away from all the other hoses. Should go together pretty nice. I'll follow up once I get everything else connected. The direction solenoids will be activated through 2 switches on a generic cat skid steer handle I found on eBay. The loader knob on the Kubota is a press fit on a 1/2 inch tube, and I plan to heat it up with a heat gun and try to get it off and rethread it 1/2-20. And I also rethreaded the handle 1/2-20 so it'll screw on the old loader handle. This tube's a little bit larger than 1/2 inch, so I'm going to take a 9/16 wrench, try to beat this off after I heat it up some. I already heated on it a little bit before I started the video. Let's see if this works. Yeah, looks like it's coming. Just like that. That's a solid rod, so there's not going to be any feeding any wires through it. They're going to have to go in down and attach to it. The loader handle's just connected with a couple of 6mm bolts with 10mm heads, so it'll be easy to get off. I'm probably going to have to grind on the end of it a little bit to get the die started on it. It's not starting easily, and may not be able to thread this thing. I don't know. I may have to press on the new handle like the old handle was. Wiring up the handle, all I have to switch is power here, so I use the red and white wires that coincide with the wires that were on the switches coming in, and I'm going to use the yellow and black going out, and use those little heat shrink connectors with the solder core to connect the wires together, and that worked out really well. I'm testing my switch connections. I got them wired up so that check continuity. That one's good. Just got to repeat it on the other one. And the right side's good. Should be good to go. This handle turned into a lot more fun than I anticipated. The final fix wasn't too involved, but I'd rethreaded it half 20 in the handle, and on the shaft I couldn't get the die to start straight. I ended up having to cut the shaft off and weld a piece of a bolt on there that was half 20. If I was starting over, I would just take the shaft that came screwed into the handle and cut that off and weld it on. I cut a good 7 inches off of the loader handle because I wanted it down lower, where it's like I got my elbow on the armrest and my hand can get right here, so I don't have to move up like it was to operate it. It's very ergonomically friendly in my opinion. I think it came out pretty nice. So wiring up the DIN connectors at the machine is not a lot of fun, but I would have had to pull the wires twice to get the right length and all that. So I'm assuming, since it's got an LED, that polarity matters, and from what I could tell online, this right side is positive and the left side is negative, with this side not connected. And here's the gist of the way I wired it. I've got the cable coming off of the loader handle. It goes down. I got it under the mat over there. It crosses over the tunnel, goes under the mat, and comes out up over here under the fuse box. For power to the switches, don't hate on me, I scotch locked off the fused side of the auxiliary wire that goes to the back of the tractor that's not in use unless you plug something into it. And so that's power going to the switches. Power coming out of the switches, I went red and black to the DIN connectors. I got 2 eyelets on the blacks for ground, and I got my 2 power wires going to my DIN connectors. I ran those wires out around the brake rod. I know that's not ideal, but I didn't want to drill holes in the firewall, and the main boot around the main harness was just too tight. So that's where it went, and I left plenty of room underneath and zip tied them to the harness and checked them for movement, and they should be able to move up and down with the brake rod. The little bit of movement that it has in it, it's not much. So, and then I got the DIN connectors all wired up under there. Opening the hood and pulling the left side engine cover gave me a little more room to look what I was doing with wiring. So that's all tucked in nice and neat, and hopefully it'll all survive. A couple more notes on my wiring. The wire that I used coming off the rear outlet, that's an auxiliary wire, is pink. It's on the left side. It's hot all the time, which is my preference. That way I can relieve the hydraulic pressure without having the key on. So that's just a matter of choice. Some people want key switched power, and I like it unswitched, but it's on a fuse, so the directional will get it. Got my buttons are working. And everybody's happy on that end. I bought this hose wrap protector off of Amazon. It was supposed to be 2 inches inside diameter. It turned out it's 2 inches across flat, so they misrepresented that. It frays everywhere you cut it, so I'm going to put it over the socket, and I'll take this mini torch and go around and melt the ends and rotate it around and keep it from fraying once it's installed. Hopefully there's enough there. They claimed it was 33 feet, and I've got the two machine side hoses wrapped, and this is hopefully enough to wrap the two going to the loader. I was originally going to put 2 hoses in each wrap, but this is not big enough, so I'm going to wrap each hose individually. I installed the hoses at the valve first, and probably could have used a 30-degree adapter on this top hose. It's just barely touching right here, and I don't have hardly any room to tilt the valve any further down, but it is just barely touching, so hopefully it'll be okay. I zip tied the hoses up here and used a heavy duty 180-pound zip tie back there to keep them away from the brake rod. Probably eventually replace that one with an insulated metal band P-clamp, because zip tie is just not reliable for long term. Okay, I've got my hoses connected to the other end and ready to connect over here. This fitting down there, I don't have any large metric things, but 1 1/16 fits loosely, but it fits good enough, I think, to get it loose. And going back is going to be a 7/8. This one up here is a 17 millimeter. I've already boogered it up a little bit, but it's so that factory banjo bolt on top, the 17 millimeter, I'd already had it out and in a couple of times measuring it, and apparently this last time it just decided it wasn't going to come and round it off. I ended up having to put a pair of vice grips on it and beat on it with a block of wood to get it loose. The bolt for the pressure end of this came loose without too much drama, with an 1 1/16 socket. And I hope I don't lose too much liquid gold taking it out. And I'm replacing that with a 90-degree adapter. It'll change it to a So I ended up having to take that port loose above the pressure port to make room to get my 90-degree fitting in. This return port has a ridge around the back side of it that prevents you from facing it the other way, so I'm going to have to loop the hose to go into that from this side. I got both of my fittings in and tight. Got my port that I had to loosen reconnected. Hopefully it won't leak. I didn't put new O-rings in it. I probably should have, but usually those things are okay as long as they're pliable. Both of my hoses connected and tight, and so the return line has to do a loop, but it's got plenty of movement. I think it'll be okay. It could have been a little bit shorter, but I think everything's going to be okay, and it's all clear of everything and strapped out of the way. And that was all the oil I lost, so that's a happy thing. I'm going to install some rivet nuts for the bulkhead bracket. You got to be careful here to make sure that they line up in between the tube of the loader and the hydraulic lines, so it's got to fit right in between those two. I come up with about 3/4 of an inch from here. We'll see if it falls in the right place when I get it together. These bolts holding that tube shield on were galled up, and boogered up the welded in nuts some. So I'm cleaning the welded in nuts with a tap and replacing the bolts, and I'll put some anti-seize on the threads on the new bolts. Okay, everything's connected and tight. To get the hoses to articulate with the loader, you have to mimic the S shape that's on the loader side. It curves around that way and goes up here and over here there this way. And I got it down on the bar. Okay, it's all finished. It came out nice and neat. I'm gonna have to get some wrap for these grapple hoses, do something about them, but it all fit nice and neat. Valves trucked in. It's a lot slower than I thought it would be. I thought it would slam up and open and close, but that's the speed it operates at. Handles nice and neat, very comfortable, very easy to get to. I'm happy.